Hello and welcome to the Figure Fourcast, the latest edition. With me, Sam Gardner, and as ever, Damien Cross. Damien, you alright?
Yeah, I'm not too bad. Episode 20 is next week. It's episode 19 this week. A lot of episodes. Didn't think we would necessarily get this far, but it's excited to keep going.
Yeah, definitely. It's going to be a bit of a milestone, and if we can think of something special to do for the Big 2-0, then we will do it. If you've got any suggestions, send them in, because we haven't really put much thought to it. It's sort of creeped up on us, and just before we started to record today, we were like, oh, next week's the 20th episode. We should probably do something for that.
Yeah, no ideas at the minute, but I'm sure either we'll think of something or someone will let us know an idea. But
yeah, well, enough of this sentiment, soppy bollocks. Let's get in to the wrestling. And this Sunday, or last Sunday, depending on how you say it, it was Hell in a Cell, a pay-per-view. It kind of feels like a long time ago. This week seems to have felt very long, and the pay-per-view seems to have been an age ago. So we've just refreshed ourselves, and I guess the most important thing to mention coming out of the Hell in a Cell pay-per-view is that I am still the reigning, defending predictions champion, and there is another loss for Damien, meaning he is going to have to do an in-depth, segment-by-segment analysis of a Monday Night Raw of my choice. Now, I haven't picked which Monday Night Raw it's going to be yet. I don't think it will be this week's, because in comparison to the last couple of weeks' Raws, this week's Raw is actually okay, dare I say. It had its moments at least.
I did a little bit of a dry run when I was watching Raw this week, kind of thinking about how I would do the breakdown. But yeah, this week was on a more positive note than it has been in a few weeks. I didn't think he was going to pick it, but that will be something to look forward to. I cannot catch a break on these predictions. Losing because of a DQ.
It's just the most Damien way to lose ever.
Like, I ended up watching it Monday morning, and I'd seen a Twitter post that said that Rhea was still champion. I was like, oh, I've got this in the bag. And then I'm watching the match, and I'm like, shit. But we'll get to that in a minute.
Yeah.
We'll discuss that ending to that match as well as some of the other ones. But yeah, not been much luck in terms of predictions. Hopefully that turns around soon. I've done technically every punishment, because I did do a little bit of the chili punishment, which awkwardly I still need to edit and release. That is coming. Editing is just not something I'm very good at. So yeah, I've technically took part in every punishment so far.
It's been brilliant. It's been absolutely brilliant for me, and it's such a turn up for the books, because before we did this podcast I lost every single month, and now it's completely roles reversed, so it's absolutely amazing. Yeah. But just going back to the pay-per-view, what did you think of the show as a whole?
Hell in a Cell is normally a weird one. It's normally the kind of Halloween, October pay-per-view, and it kind of fits into like a weird time frame, and it's slightly better time I think now, but still, because of the Hell in a Cell forced stipulation, I always think the pay-per-view is going to struggle a little bit. The two Hell in a Cell matches were very entertaining, a few moments aside, and overall I was pretty entertained by the event. It wasn't something I was really that hyped for. The match I was most hyped for ended up getting bumped to SmackDown, which was Roman Reigns versus Rey Mysterio. So I didn't expect a lot from it, so I feel like it over-delivered in that regard. But it being WWE, it was still a little flawed at times.
Yeah.
So
just going on that point, the Mysterio Reigns match being on SmackDown, I feel like this show really missed that match being on the card. It felt like the main event had been taken away from it, which ultimately it had, and I think it suffered as a result of that. But let's jump into the Hell in a Cell matches, shall we? The first match on the card was Bianca Belair versus Bayley, and it's kind of what we've been saying for a little while, that the build hasn't been amazing, but the match will ultimately deliver because of the performers in there. And I think, bar a couple of ropey moments, it did deliver. It was an enjoyable match for me.
Yeah, they tried the double kendo stick ladder spot, which they've tried it before. They successfully hit that spot in this match, and it just seemed a little odd to me. Like, it didn't look like it had any impact, so it felt like an odd spot to do. But you can't fault them for trying new things. I don't think it looked that great. I think an actual beating with a kendo stick looks way more impactful than that. But that aside, the match was it was pretty good. Like, they had the kind of setup with Bianca Belair's hair, like tying her to the rope, and then her tying herself to Bayley, which added that kind of strap match aspect to it a little bit there, which kind of gave some interesting moments. And it was a hard hitting match, and they're both amazing performers, so for the most part they set the show off on a really good, strong start. It is kind of everything you'd want from an opening match, really.
Yeah, I really enjoyed this match. It's thoroughly enjoyable. There's some hard hitting moments in there, and like you say, the performances are so good. For me, I feel like Bayley is such sort of a student of wrestling. She knows it inside out so well that she knows all of the spots that have happened in Hell in a Cell previously, and she just wants to find something new. And perhaps that's a little bit to her detriment. Like, that kendo stick spot is something new, something we perhaps haven't seen before. I know she tried it with Sasha last year, but maybe there's a reason why they haven't been done in the past. But look, they are very minor criticisms, and it's not even a criticism as such, because I wouldn't say it was bad at all. It's just like, yeah, I don't know. I don't want to criticise them, because it was a good match. It was a good match for me, and a really good way to start off the show. Probably match of the night. Yeah. Probably match of the night for me.
Yeah, I think there was a couple of matches that could have rivaled it if I had to rank them all, but this didn't suffer from any entertainment booking stuff. There's a couple of other matches on the show that were really good, except they required something else to happen, and this didn't really have that. It was they could kind of do whatever they wanted as long as Bianca Belair got the win, and they managed to put on a really good match because of that. Like, you take the restraints away, and you can deliver, and that's exactly what this match did for me.
I'll tell you what, one thing that did come to my mind as the show started with the cell match was that stupid red cell. Somehow, even though I saw it on SmackDown, I've completely forgot that the cell was now red, and it just sort of struck me like, why the hell did they do that? It was so much better having the proper metal cell. It looks ridiculous now. It just distracts me.
I feel now that I've got used to it and I don't even think about it. Like, I saw a lot of people complaining about it on Twitter, and I was like, I feel like I'm just used to it at this point.
Yeah, as the match sort of went on, I kind of forgot and got immersed in the match. But it's just right at the beginning, I completely forgot that the cell was red.
Yeah,
it sort of took me back a little bit.
For a second on SmackDown, I thought the cell was going to be blue.
Oh god!
Just because that's a very WWE thing. But obviously there would be no point in painting it blue and then having a red one. But yeah, when I was watching SmackDown last week, I was like, oh, I'm surprised the cell isn't blue.
Yeah. Paint wouldn't have been able to dry between matches, between shows. Like, someone would come off the cage on Sunday and then have red paint all over them. I suppose it's a way to get around the blood. But going back to you said there was a couple of matches rivaled the women's championship match. Presumably, in your head, one of them was Seth Rollins and Cesaro.
That wasn't one I actually immediately jumped to mind, but that did have some really good in-ring work as well.
Yeah,
so
it did. I just want to touch on it briefly because we've seen this match a few times in recent memory. It kind of seemed like the bare minimum that these two could do between each other to me. yeah, something just didn't sort of land with me. Like I say, it's I don't know how to describe it. What are your sort of thoughts on it?
I feel like the story is kind of affecting what they can do. Like, we know they're really talented, and if they were given free reign, which obviously then you don't really get given that anymore. But if there was no story that they had to work around, they could put on such a phenomenal match, like main event worthy of any show, really. Those two, there's just something with like the character that Seth Rollins is portraying, and also like this kind of changing what the match has to be. Now, there's nothing wrong with that, because a good story should take precedent. Like, it is an entertainment show. Like, you can have them wrestle an amazing 60-minute match, but you're trying to tell a story. So I'm fine with them not doing that for the purpose of the story, for the purpose of this Seth Rollins character. But it does just feel like something is missing at the moment from this. They are maybe holding back a little too much. Need to give the fans a little bit more of what we know they can deliver.
Yeah.
And as much as I don't like seeing the same match repeated over and over again, I would be interested in revisiting this if we get that bit more.
I think the problem is that at WrestleMania we perhaps saw the peak of what these two could do, or very close to, and you're going to struggle to live up to that, especially in the Thunderdome era. I know this was the last show, but that WrestleMania match, it was just sort of a perfect combination. They both performed really well, and you had the added sort of factor of fans being back for WrestleMania in there. So I think any sort of subsequential match between them is sort of suffering from that. But I do want to know, what was your match of the night then, or what sort of was up there for your match of the night?
The two matches where I think the in-ring work really had me hooked were the Sami Zayn Kevin Owens match. There was a lot of story going around with that, but I think that they really managed to draw me in with that one. And until the very end, I really was enjoying the Drew McIntyre Bobby Lashley Hell in a Cell match. Now,
I would agree.
The ending of that does bring that down quite a bit, which is why I said those two could maybe contend with it, but they did have some problems which Bianca Belair and Bayley didn't have. So the women the SmackDown Women's Title match definitely was match of the night for me, but there were those other two kind of had me hooked, and they happened beginning, middle, end. So that's exactly what you really want for a pay-per-view. I was kind of invested throughout when I was actually watching it. So
yeah, I really enjoyed the Zayn and Owens match, particularly the selling of Kevin Owens. He went in there sort of selling his throat and coughing from the Nigerian nail that he got hit with on the Friday before the pay-per-view, and then he subsequently started selling his arm and an arm injury. And I was saying to you just before we started recording, he's so good at making an injury seem believable that you kind of think, is he legit injured? And I honestly couldn't tell. I really couldn't tell, and it's testament to it.
Well, I was saying it around WrestleMania, when he did his whole thing with Logan Paul raising his arm, and he was just watching it. Like, he's so good at the stuff around the wrestling. Now, he's really good at the wrestling, actually wrestling. But there's those little things, the convincing selling of an injury throughout. You don't notice it, like kind of the expression on his face. And working with Sami Zayn, obviously they've been best friends for years. They know each other so well. They always have amazing in-ring chemistry. So like, I don't think I'll ever get tired of a Sami Zayn.
Something has to go
match.
Drastically wrong to get a bad match out of those two.
And if there is going to be a bad match, it's probably because the story needs to go somewhere.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was a great match, and although I'd predicted Kevin Owens to win, he's wanting some time off, and I feel like on the night, Sami Zayn was the right call there. Like,
yeah. Well, look, let's move on to the other match you just mentioned there, the WWE Championship match inside Hell in a Cell. Bobby Lashley, Drew McIntyre. It was brutal, absolutely brutal up until the finish. Like you say, there was so many hard hitting moments, and the pictures of Drew McIntyre's back afterwards are insane. The welts that he's got on his back from the kendo stick shots that he took are mad. And
it seems like Drew McIntyre and Sheamus are having a competition of who can take the most legit hits to the body, because every week one of them or the other is posting pictures with like welts and like mini cuts and stuff. Obviously Sheamus broke his nose. I don't think he wanted that one, but even still, like, there's a little part of me that's worried about him, because like those are some legit hits they're taking. Like Drew was taking with a kendo stick. Those welts speak for themselves.
It's horrible.
It's entertaining when it looks real, but you can dial it down a tiny little bit, Drew. Like, don't actually get hurt. Like,
yeah. Well, look, we'd be remiss not to speak about the finish of the match. It was a roll-up, a distraction roll-up, essentially. Now, what sort of went through my mind was, imagine being told backstage, oh, this is what the finish is going to be, Drew, and you're going to have to take all this beating with a kendo stick to your back. 20 minutes match, 25-minute match, you're going to get absolutely smothered with a kendo stick, and you're going to be like a tender bit of beef, and then you're going to get rolled up at the end. You'd be pissed, wouldn't you? You'd be so pissed. All of that just for a roll up.
I don't know if this is true. This is just a theory I have. But it seems like that match didn't get changed to me after they moved the Roman Reigns Rey Mysterio match.
Yeah,
because if Roman Reigns and Rey Mysterio had main evented, this would have happened a little bit earlier. Probably wouldn't have been second to last because both had been Hell in a Cell, but that would have happened earlier in the night, and it would have worked. Now, WWE love to go to the roll up and distraction well for their booking, and deservedly get criticised for it. But every so often, the story kind of fits it, and having MVP distract Drew McIntyre here made a lot of sense. Like, he managed to get in during the whole ref shenanigans stuff. He was the extra person in Bobby Lashley's corner, which was the advantage, and it makes sense. I wish it hadn't been a roll up. I wish it had been a distraction into the hurt lock, for example.
That's what it looked like it was going to be, a distraction into like a hurt lock or a spear, which I think people and myself would be up for. It's just the roll up. Why?
Yeah, there is times when it's right to do that.
Yeah.
And this wasn't it. That's the problem WWE have had, is they're overusing these mechanics, distraction roll-ups.
Well, I don't
DQs,
think it's it for Bobby Lashley in general. Like, he did absolutely decimated the Miz, and since then he's been more of a cowardly heel champion rather than a destroyer.
I mean, he still looked dominant at times during the match, so I don't think it made him look like. Well, if it hadn't been a roll-up, if he had locked him in the submission, it would have been a smart heel. He's using the advantage he has by having MVP. But yeah, the roll-up just felt a little odd, especially as it was the main event. It's the last thing, and up until that point, really good match, hard hitting.
Yeah.
Used the cell a bit.
Yeah.
So great match up until kind of the final moments.
Yeah, I completely agree, and I think that's sort of the consensus across the board of people that have watched it. Let's talk about what should have been the main event. Friday Night SmackDown, it happened on. Rey Mysterio against Roman Reigns. One of the shorter Hell in a Cell matches that I think we've ever had, but it did everything that I wanted. Rey Mysterio realised that he was in the deep end with Roman Reigns, and he did everything he could to try and beat him early on. But then Reigns starts getting back in control and just shows that vicious side. Ends up winning eventually after throwing Mysterio out of the ring a couple of times into the cage. And then just absolutely dominating him after the match and choking him out a couple of times.
Yes.
It was great stuff yet again.
From my perspective, I can't really fault it. It progressed the story. It was good in ring. Made great use of the stipulation. Like, they really nailed it for what they wanted that match to be, and kind of checked off all of those boxes there. Wish it had been on the pay-per-view.
Yeah, agreed.
There's presumably some backstage reason that it got moved. I've seen some videos talking about it, but no one seems to have a concrete answer behind it. It's actually caused a little bit of drama with the networks and stuff, so probably wasn't the best idea to move it.
We just coincidentally get a Hell in a Cell on Monday Night Raw on a different network. Woo! Wonder why that happened.
I feel like we should talk about that one here. We had 4 Hell in a Cell matches in 3 days.
Yeah.
All good for different kind of on different levels, but I'd say they were all good Hell in a Cell matches. The one on Raw, I think, will mostly be remembered for the ending rather than the build. The build throughout the match was really good, but that moment of having Xavier Woods in the Hurt Lock pressed up against the cage while Kofi's on the outside was
brilliant.
That was quite a picture.
It was really, really good, and Xavier Woods, he's quality. He is absolutely quality. Yeah. He's been a sleeper for so many people for so long, but he is one of the ultimate baby faces, and I think we need to give Raw actually a little bit of credit, because they've had this Kofi and Lashley storyline on the Underburn for a little while, and it looks like they've actually booked Bobby Lashley into a story following on from McIntyre, and it's sort of a logical story. Well done, Raw. Well done. When's the last time we have ever seen that happen? And it not just be a random feud.
Well, we'll talk about Raw a little bit more in a minute.
Yes,
we've still got a couple of other Hell in a Cell matches to go over. We've covered the good. They're all kind of good in their own way, but let's cover the more questionable matches.
Which one do you want to start with?
Let's start with Baszler Bliss.
Okay, you lead.
Which this I actually had to go back and watch this one after the pay-per-view. I kind of didn't really follow it properly when I was watching it. It kind of fell in a bit of a bad position on the card, I think. But I don't even know what to say about it. Like, there was such a disconnect between the spooky stuff and the actual match. Like, Alexa Bliss kept laughing at the offense, which was interesting.
Yeah.
And then there was the whole possessing Nia Jax into slapping Reginald, which I was confused about, because if you could possess Nia Jax, why is that what you would make her do?
Yeah, it's just all strange. What I don't understand is...
it's kind of like my idea about her being a puppet master. She can possess people now.
It is.
Okay.
But she's got to be the worst possessor, if that's the word, in history, because all you have to do to be unpossessed is look away from her. Just don't make eye contact, and you're fine.
Yeah, it's like hypnotism.
Yeah, it's very strange stuff. One thing that I would like to say about this Alexa Bliss character that I've noticed over the last couple of weeks is that for someone that's meant to be so dominant with spooky bollocks, goofy stuff, Her moveset isn't the hardest hitting. It hasn't really changed from her previous character, and she's doing, I can't remember what it's called, Twisted Bliss is it a finisher, is it, where she jumps off the top rope? I really feel like her moveset does not fit with her character.
No, it seems like there's multiple sides of Alexa Bliss kind of fighting for dominance, and her moveset is old Alexa Bliss, and it would be interesting if because she was using Sister Abigail for a while, and that kind of worked. She hits that quite well, but yeah, she kind of needs a move that separates this character from kind of the other characters. I think like the Undertaker did it. He temporarily retired Tombstone and did the Last Ride to kind of differentiate the characters. And
American Badass.
Yeah, I feel that's kind of important thing to do. I'm not. A lot of people are really over this character and think it should be stopped, and she should go back to old Alexa, and I wouldn't be opposed to that but I don't want it to just be like, okay, well, we're stopping that, she's gonna be off TV for 3 weeks, she's gonna come back as regular. Like, if you're gonna do that, do it as a transition back into the character. At least have the story make sense. But I do question where, like, not even where this is going to go, but what is the longevity of this kind of character? She seemed to be enjoying herself. Apparently, like, she's having a lot of fun with it. So
yeah, I saw that Simon Miller talking about it. So fair play, she's enjoying it.
Yeah, like, you want the wrestlers to be doing something they're happy with, so that's fine. And the thing that's always gets told is you don't have to like everything on a show. WWE is trying to cover a number of bases for every type of wrestling fan. So as long as some people are enjoying it, that's kind of the best that they can hope for. I've enjoyed some of the segments. I didn't really enjoy the match too much, but it's something that could change. Like,
yeah. Well, I guarantee one thing you didn't like about the Hell in a Cell show was the Raw Women's Championship match, and particularly the finish, which ended in a disqualification and ultimately handed me the win in the predictions challenge. Do you want to talk about it?
Before we talk about the match, I want to talk about the disqualification.
Yes.
Because Rhea Ripley was disqualified for hitting Charlotte Flair with the top of the announce table, like the display piece. Now, why is that a disqualification? Hitting someone with effectively a bit of plastic.
Yep.
Like, I'm assuming it's plastic. I don't know what it's like. It's not much. Like, you can throw someone into the stairs. You can. I think we've seen people get put through the announce table before and not be disqualified. Like, through the ring barriers and be counted out.
Yeah, sorry.
But getting hit with the bit of plastic was a DQ. Like, if you're gonna do a DQ, do it for, like, have a hit with a ring bell.
Oh, do you know what? I took the dog barking out of last week's show, but I'm absolutely this time. When I was editing it, I absolutely pissed my pants. It was brilliant. Damien is now trying to frantically close his window so you don't hear a dog barking, and I think he's succeeded. So let's talk about this match again. And look, for the last 15 years, right? Well, probably more than 15 years he's been in there, but I've been watching Randy Orton. And for a majority of those 15 years, Randy Orton does a back body drop to his opponent in most matches onto the announce table, and that is not a disqualification. But Rhea Ripley hitting Charlotte with a part of the announce table, which is also used in Randy Orton's offense, is a disqualification. Where's the logic there? There is none.
No, this is like a watered down version of a criticism of Hell in a Cell. I want to say 2 years ago, The Fiend versus Seth Rollins. How do you have a Hell in a Cell match end in a DQ?
Oh god!
It's like a watered down version of it. Like it's fine to do a DQ. It still would have been not the best ending, but at least like there's so many weapons around the ring, chairs. Like put it through the announce table and say that's a DQ. Like it was such a weird.
It was a shit one.
DQ.
It was so shit.
That not only is it a bad way to end a match, it's also a bad version of a bad way to end the match. It's bad twice.
Yeah, and that's all. Ultimately, no matter how good or bad the match was, that is all we're going to remember it for. And it was poo. It was rubbish. So that's all I've got to say about the match.
Yeah, the rest of the match is obviously tainted by the ending, but it wasn't anything amazing up until that point. I don't really think Charlotte Flair and Rhea Ripley have the best in-ring chemistry.
No.
I don't know if they work very well together. They should. They're both amazing,
well,
but
yeah.
you know, sometimes wrestlers don't click, and this seems to be one of them. So hopefully their match at Money in the Bank is the last for a while.
I really hope so. I was hoping that this match would be the last one and they just have a clean cut, go their separate ways, and hopefully rehabilitate both of these characters because they're so bad. They're just terrible characters, and like I say, the dynamics just so disappointing between two really talented women. So yeah, hopefully it is the end of Money in the Bank and we can move on to bigger and better things for both women.
Yeah.
Look,
hopefully
that's Hell in a Cell talked about. We didn't talk about the match of the night, Natalya defeating Mandy Rose. What? Natalya? How the hell can someone that comes out to Bret Hart's music and has been doing this for however many years that she does it, she can't do a sharpshooter? How? How can she not do a sharpshooter? My God, woman. Learn how to do a sharpshooter.
I didn't see the match. I caught the very, very end, like when they were doing like the recap, when I turned on Hell in a Cell on the Sunday night, before deciding I wanted to sleep and watching it Monday morning.
Yeah.
But I didn't actually. The only question I have about this match is, I mean, it was a pre-show match, so that kind of tells you everything you need to know about it anyway. But there's two tag teams in the women's division at the minute. Why did you put both of them in like a singles match?
Oh, I don't know.
Why not just?
I don't know. Well, look, let's segue into Raw, shall we?
I just want to, because sometimes WWE will do the thing of, oh, you need to get a win to then deserve a title shot. If you're the only team that can challenge, how do you not automatically just get the title shot?
Well, how
They're
bad
the only
are
other
you?
team in the division.
How bad are you if you're not number one contenders, being the only other team? Ridiculous. But yeah, let's segue into Raw and talk about their continued feud on Monday Night Raw. It's not particularly what I thought we'd talk about, but they essentially just flipped the angle from last week, and they had Mandy Rose and Dana Brooke in the ring training, and Natalya and Tamina having a photo shoot, and then they kind of had a bit of a brawl in the ring. Fine, okay. Did we just not think of another thing to do and someone, how about we just flip the roles? Genius, David. Well done. Yes, promotion for you.
I genuinely think at this point in time, the women's tag team division is unsalvageable. And I think WWE have realised that, because they had another team kind of there ready to be a team, and then I think they've split them up already. Like, I don't know what's happening with the women's division at the minute. Some of it I'm like, I want to see how this plays out. A lot of it I'm like, I don't want to watch this because the story has no logic and is very little entertainment. But this definitely needs a reset. Like, I don't know how you salvage this. Like, we did trying to fix Monday Night Raw, and that was difficult. How to fix the women's division is a challenge we are not equipped for.
The only way they can fix it is to unify the NXT women's titles, the tag team titles, and the main roster ones, and then just have it as one combined division. Because the only teams that are legitimately in that company are in NXT. Otherwise, it's just random women put together. No, again, it's just baffling why they have two separate titles for that. It's just absolutely crazy.
There's barely enough men's tag teams in WWE, and as we said, there was 2 women's tag teams at the minute.
And there's barely any women in general, not just teams. Barely any women left after the bloody releases. I think they've now classing Maurice as a in-ring competitor on SmackDown. That's the levels that they're going to.
I know she was still listed on the website as a SmackDown superstar, but
when's the last time she competed?
I don't know how often they really do that, because it's also still got Commander Aziz listed as Dabba-Kato.
Bloody hell! Sounds like a wasteland. Yeah.
So I think whoever's in charge of updating WWE's roster pages keeps forgetting. But they do some of the big ones, like
Bloody
Daniel Bryan isn't listed on there. All of the released wrestlers aren't listed on there, but the ones that are active, they're like, don't worry about it.
Yeah. Well, look, is there anything specifically you want to talk about from Raw this week?
There's 2 things. And while we're talking about the women's division, I feel like we need to cover both of these talking points.
Is it going to involve a Dewdrop?
The first one is Dewdrop.
Dewdrop.
And I don't know if this was it's got to have been intended, but it was pointed out on Twitter. I can't remember who tweeted it out, but when Eva Marie says what her name is, you can see Piper mouthing, "That's not my name."
Yeah.
Or something to that effect. Which has got to have been intended.
I think it is.
So, because of that, I'm holding on to that thin vein of hope that this is all part of the Eve Marie story, and they're not actually going to be calling her that, and she's going to go back to being.
It's just like
Piper,
bully Eva Marie, calling her a name to sort of downgrade her in a way. Yeah, sure.
And obviously they had the kind of breakup of the team
after a week. After 1 week.
After a week.
What the fuck? They didn't even know who she was last week. They didn't even know who Pip Nova was last week.
So
what is going on?
I want to see how it plays out, but I have no confidence that it's going to be good. But I just want to know. I
tell you what I want to know. I want to know if Dewdrop means the same thing in America as it does here. Because to me, I don't even know if it's the same thing for you. A dewdrop is like when you're kind of cold and you can't feel your nose, a little bit of snot comes out of your nose and it's just hanging there. That's what I call a dewdrop.
That's not what I thought of, but I'm just going to check because I want to get the wording for this right. DOU drop, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Urban Dictionary, which everyone knows.
Oh God, where's this going? This is a kind of PG podcast here.
Has it been removed? Has someone removed it from Urban Dictionary?
WWE have removed it.
Oh my God, it was on there earlier. Okay, so WWE must have had it removed because it was listed. It had two meanings on that, and if you actually search it, Google still shows some of the meaning for one of them as the term, but you can't search it. But the meaning was a woman who is romantically attracted to other women.
Okay.
And the one that's listed on Google that you can't see the end of says a person with an outwardly dominant masculine or aggressive personality, but who also enthusiastically takes on a submissive or bottom role in the... and then you can't read anymore. So it definitely has some meanings in America.
I imagine those meanings are closer to the meaning that I had in my head.
I'm also guessing that WWE don't want that association because they seem to have had the Urban Dictionary taken down, or Urban Dictionary is crashing. That is a very real possibility as well.
They must. The thing is, they must have those. They must kind of want those annotations on the name because it's just such a random name to make. Like if it's just like a generic name that if it's just picked out somewhere, you don't just pick Doodrol. They must have known that it's got those connotations and it's an underlying thing towards Piffin Ibn, which is a bit of a dick move to do.
Yeah, very very strange. I thought it was going to be a move originally when it was kind of leaked online that they'd filed this trademark. I thought it was going to be a name for a finishing move.
The doo-doo drop.
Not an actual name. I mean, that is also the problem that they would have had with that, I guess. There is one other talking point in the women's division from Raw.
Go on.
It is, of course, Super Nikki.
Oh.
Now,
you're high on this.
This is getting a lot of hate online, and I will defend this because some of my earliest wrestling memories, watching wrestling with my dad, had the Hurricane, Rosie, and I can't remember what there was a woman.
I don't know. I can't remember a woman superhero with Hurricane and Rosie.
Mighty Molly.
Ah, it was Molly Holly, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Went by Mighty Molly. So WWE have delved into this in the past, and there were some really entertaining moments with the Hurricane. Him and The Rock. That was a little bit before I was watching, but I have gone back and seen those. Some great moments, and that is a character that I loved watching as a kid. When he changed to just being Gregory Helms, he was still as talented. He didn't lose any talent, but he wasn't quite as entertaining. It didn't, at least to me at that age. So WWE is a family entertainment program. If they want to do this, and like kids are going to get invested in this Super Nikki, whatever they decide to call her, character, then you can't criticise that, especially as it has been revealed by
go on, remember his name.
Real life partner.
Go on.
I was trying to think what I don't know if they're married, engaged.
Well,
real life.
His real name is Big Damo, so you should remember that.
Yeah.
Killian Dane.
Killian Dane on Twitter that this was Nikki Cross's idea. She pitched this and she wanted this. And as we said with Alexa Bliss, you want the wrestlers to be doing what they enjoy. So another reason to lay off the criticism a little bit. Like
I don't know, man. I don't know. It's just it sucks for me. I find like this goody two shoes Nikki Cross character, even before superhero Nikki, I was just cringing so much. I was like, oh god, not again. I just find her delivery of it all so cringy, and it turned that up to sort of 1,000 with her being a superhero. But I'm
not gonna lie, it is a little bit cringy, but just for the I don't think it's meant to be for men in their mid to late 20s being like, well, I wish she was doing something else. It's going to be aimed at the kids.
Stick to the mid. More mid than late, thank you. Yeah. But look, I've just got visions of, she may well have pitched it, and fair play to her for being happy. But I guarantee you that while she's out there making a complete fool of herself, Vince McMahon's in Gorilla, absolutely pissing himself, belly laughing. And you can see why he said yes. He loves seeing people make a fool of themselves. So
maybe
good on her.
But...
Good on her. If it gets her TV time, fair play. And superheroes seem to do pretty well for themselves in once they leave WWE. So, like, it's one of those that people pay to see on the indies. So if she ever gets released, which history tells you she may well, because anyone can get released in WWE apparently. Braun Strowman got released. Hopefully she does well for it.
I would just like to add that tweet from Killian Dane about Nikki Cross is the most confusing thing for me to talk about, because obviously it's Damo and Nikki Cross. Like, it's both halves of my name with two different people. It makes it very confusing.
I never thought about that, really. Any other moments on Raw you want to talk about?
One last here. We've ran quite a while here, but it was mentioned in our episode last week that WWE want every match to have a purpose. And I feel like this week we really saw how that was going to start, as we had the qualification matches for Money in the Bank. Now, I think last year they just announced people to be part of it, so this is an improvement. And we got to see some new matchups for this. So we've criticised WWE, especially Raw, a lot recently, so I do want to give them their props that the setup for the majority of the action this week it made sense, and it was new matchups, and you got to give them props for doing that, because it is what we've been asking for, and we kind of got it this week. How that develops going forward, we'll have to wait and see, but I was a big fan of the kind of the theme of this week's Monday Night Raw, and I'm assuming that's going to follow on to SmackDown, which hasn't aired yet, but they need to fill the other half of the bracket, so
yeah,
we'll imagine that will carry on there.
I do agree with that, and it did make Raw a little bit better this week. I'm not saying it was fantastic and brilliant show, but it made it better from what we've been served over the last couple of weeks. So fingers crossed it stays on that trajectory. Easy for me to say on a Friday night, and Raw continues to improve. But there we go. I think that's this week's podcast. A little bit different, I guess. Like, we didn't really come into it with a plan because of things that have happened this week for both of us, but I think we've summed up this week's action pretty well. SmackDown's tonight, looking forward to that. Always a good show, so we'll talk about that a little bit next week, and I'll watch that tomorrow morning. That's enough from me. I'll speak to you all next week, and I'll see you tomorrow, Damien, for a BBQ.
Are we including that at the end?
We are. Everyone's invited. It'll be in the past, so if you're a Time Lord, feel free to come back and come round.
Join us on Twitter at Figure 4 UK, on Facebook at The Figure Forecast, and on YouTube at youtube.com/The Figure Forecast. Thank you, and we look forward to recording the next episode for you.